Welcome to the Mastery Series. I'm your host, Warren Williams, from warrenwilliamscoaching.com. So I'm going to be basically taking you through something called the Mastery Series, where I focus on specific techniques and I basically break down the technique benefits, the muscles that it's going to be working, but also more importantly, how to execute that technique correctly. There is a golden rule called the form principle. And the form principle basically stipulates that you should only do as many reps as you can with perfect form. We know that this rule is in place because most people get injured exercising. They don't get injured sitting at home watching TV. They don't get fit at home sitting and watching TV, but they don't get injured. So we know that injury comes through movement. You often hear specific athletes talking about when they kicked the ball, they either mistimed it or threw it and mistimed it, or it didn't feel right. That's because a specific motor engram, where it has been ingrained over a long period of time, such as throwing a ball, has been mistimed, and the muscles that are typically assisting that efficient movement have either been shut down or have been ignored, as a person may have fatigued or been compromised through bad posture and so on. So remember, all injuries, pretty much 95% upwards of injuries in the body, happen through muscle imbalance. And muscle imbalance typically happens through two things. One, training for aesthetics rather than function. And two, overtraining and creating bad technique because you overtrained. So when you have the form principle in place, if you're supposed to do 15 repetitions, and after 12 repetitions you start to cheat, that's when you stop, so you maintain perfect form. This is something called a motor engram. The word motor engram basically means motor, which is movement, and engram, which is pattern of facilitation or a pattern of constant movement, which you repeat. So people say practice makes perfect, and that's not absolutely correct. Practice makes something permanent. If you practice something wrong, no matter how many times you practice it, if it's wrong, it's wrong. So the true statement is repetition is the mother of skill, so long as there is skill in the repetition. This is mastery. Mastery means efficiency of technique. So you always make sure your form is perfect. Now, most people have what we call substitution patterns. Substitution patterns are things that you do that you may not be consciously aware of to make something easier, because the body always moves to the position of least resistance. So, as an example, if you're doing an arm curl, let's say dumbbell or barbell, you may start with really good form, keeping your body upright, knees bent, having a slightly neutral spine, arms never locked out and just slightly bent the whole time, torso really still. As you start to find it harder, what people typically start to do is they bend forward at the waist to use momentum to help kick the bar up. As the bar starts to come up, when it starts to get slightly difficult, they start to lean back to increase momentum. So now what they've added is flexion and an extension of the torso to assist the flexion of the biceps. This is known as a cheat. And some people actually do this at the start of their workout. We're going to do cheat curls instead. But what you're doing is you're creating flexion and extension of the torso, which can create back pain. Obviously, we all know that most people that get injured, it's typically in their back. L4 fibers, the typical disc in the back that may be herniated, protruding, or a disc bulge of some type. So we don't want to precipitate or increase this through bad technique. So the goal here is to understand, with this mastery series, all the substitution patterns that we would typically do for a particular type of exercise, and I'm going to coach you how to actually fine-tune these techniques so that you maintain perfect technique. So obviously there's a lot of videos online about fancy exercises, but it's not about that, because that's how you can get injured when you do exercises that may be overly complex, that your body doesn't have the neurological capacity to be able to do with efficiency. It's about making sure, because like I said, there's so many exercises out there. There's so many people that are just teaching exercises, but who's really teaching you the mastery of the exercise? It's about making sure that the technique is perfect enough so that when you do it, you gain the benefits without secondary or substitution issues that can create pain. So I've worked with many top athletes, and I can tell you most of the top athletes in the world are the best at substitution patterns, which is why they break down. You all are aware of top level athletes that are constantly breaking down in specific sports. I don't even have to name them, you're all aware of them. So it's not just about, well, I've been doing this for 10 years, so I know what I'm doing. Well, that just may mean you've been doing it for 10 years incorrectly. So that means you're probably a higher candidate for something. Remember this. Most people, when they start a repetition, it takes 300 repetitions to create a muscle habit. It takes between 5 to 17,000 repetitions to correct a fault. So if you learned something and you were unaware of the efficiency and the mastery of the technique, that would now become a muscle habit that you've created through repetition over a long period of time. So you're actually a higher risk candidate because you're set in your pattern. So my point is, get it right the first time. So my goal in this mastery series is to teach you, as I said, the efficiency of the technique, and to just look at specific cheats that you may not be aware of to help improve your level of mastery of every single technique. So each time I do one of these, we will go through one technique at a time and improve the mastery of it. I hope you really enjoy these videos. And remember, if you haven't done so already, you can sign up to my newsletter on my website, and you can get your free downloads of all content that is supportive of all my work. As well as signing up will give you access to my free audio 2.5-hour lecture. And with that, we'll move on to the first exercise.